Welcome to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25 Media. We feature top founders, executives, and business leaders from all over the world.
Chad Franzen here, co-host of the Top Business Leaders Show, where we feature CEOs, entrepreneurs, and top leaders in the business world. This episode is brought to you by Rise 25. We help B2B businesses reach their dream relationships and connect with more clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships and get ROI through Done For You podcasts. If you have a B2B business and want to build a great relationship, there's no better way than to profile the people and companies you admire on your podcast. To learn more, go to rise25.com or email us at support@rise25media.com. Mike Malatesta is an entrepreneur who has helped start, grow, and sell 2 successful waste management companies. One sold for mid-8 figures, the other for low 9 figures. He's the creator and host of the How'd It Happen podcast, where he explores stories, lessons, and wins with some of the most fascinating people in the world. Mike is also the author of a new book called Ownershift: How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck. It's a philosophical memoir that reveals the secret to why so many entrepreneurs get stuck and how they can shift to get free once again. His mission is to help 1,000 entrepreneurs create companies that become worth more than $20 million each, then for them to pass along how they did it and help at least 10 others do the same thing. Mike, thank you so much for joining me. How are you?
Chad, I am great. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Sure. Hey, it's my pleasure to speak with you. So if we could just kind of go way back here, in 1992, you started Advanced Waste Services. Tell me a little bit about how and why that came about.
Sure. So that was in November of 1992. In March of 1992, I was fired from the job that I thought I would be at, for my whole career and maybe become the CEO of this Fortune 500 company. And so I was rattled a bit and I didn't know what to do. And I was very, very fortunate to have worked with a gentleman named Butch Weiss before I had gotten fired. And Butch was just a really special guy but I didn't know him very well. And when he reached out to me a month or so after I'd been let go, I was very surprised to hear from him, Chad. And it was like I never would have expected it. And Butch said to me, like, "Hey, I don't know what you're planning to do, but if you want to start a business, I'd be really interested in doing that with you." And I thought to myself, wow, like I'd been really down, really in a bad spot after being fired. But after that, I'd gotten a job and I'd worked for 30 days and I couldn't. It was a terrible environment, and I quit that job. And I was just thinking, man, I'm a 2-time loser in like a month, or a month and a half. And here comes Butch, and he's, sprinkles me with this little bit of confidence. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So I got together with him and we started talking around his kitchen table, and we had a few beers while we were doing it, and everything we were telling each other started to sound really smart. And 6 months later, we had a business up and going.
So it was it's a waste management company. What, had you guys worked in that field before?
Yeah, we were working in the waste business. It's waste, like it's a really wide business, but we were focused on helping manufacturers in particular with wastewater problems. So we weren't picking up trash, but we were picking up water, wastewater, contaminated wastewater from factories and transporting it to water treatment facilities to clean it up and recycle it. So we had some experience, but we had no business experience. Butch was a farmer most of his life, and I was, I was working in a company, but it's a lot different than, being responsible for a company.
Had you ever thought of yourself, I'm guessing the answer is no, but had you ever thought of yourself as an entrepreneur up until that point?
Well, I've thought a lot about that. And I think the answer is that when I was 4 years old, I we lived across the street from a construction company, and I would sit outside on the curb in the afternoons in the summer, and I would watch the guys bring their trucks back. And I got really, I was very into trucks, as a lot of young boys are, but just the whole environment, the noise and the smoke and the guys, I was just all very impressive to me. And I was looking across the street at this company. It was called Rouse. That was the name of the owner. And I thought, and in my head, I thought, I wonder what that's it, what that is. But I'm not going to pretend that I became an entrepreneur at 4, but I think there was a seed planted in me while I was sitting on that curb, Chad. And when Butch came along and sort of gave me that confidence, I really feel like it was, and it's a kind of ironic that he's got this farming background, but I really feel like he came along and he germinated that long dormant seed that had been in me. So did I think I was an entrepreneur? No. But did I have something entrepreneurial in me? I think so.
So you and Butch, you got started. What were the early days like? Maybe the first year or so.
Oh, we were on top of the world. I mean, it was the two of us who knew nothing about what we were doing, but had, very complementary skill sets. We were working with trucks and equipment, and Butch was extremely talented with that kind of stuff. And I knew a little bit about sales, and I knew a little bit about invoicing, and I knew a little bit about, a lot of stuff that he didn't. And so we were a great complementary team to one another. The other thing was, in addition to having those skill sets, we were like-minded. We were hardworking. We never ever looked at each other and said, like, well, you do that. No, you do that. No, it was just like, that has to be done. So we would just do it together. And we operated like a lot of startups do. He would drive the truck and I would knock on doors and try to get new sales and do the billing and do the banking and do all of that stuff. And then when we had enough business, I would jump in the truck and then I would drive until I was driving all the time. And then we'd hire a driver and then I would go back to selling. And we just repeated that for a number of years that way. But I call that the dream stage of the business. And it was fantastic. I mean, it was a lot of hard work, but we didn't mind it at all.
So you did all kinds of things. It sounded like you probably worked, a lot of hours per day, but you liked the work that you were doing and the environment that you were in.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where you didn't know enough not to like it. It was just part of what you had to do.
In your book, Ownership, How Getting Selfish Got Me Unstuck, which comes out at the end of November, you talked about what you call the Valley of Uncertainty. Yeah. What is that? And then at what point did you find yourself in that valley as you went through this process?
Yeah, the Valley of Uncertainty is a horrible place where entrepreneurs like me go when they're broken, and they go there to expire and die, and not literally. It's a place where I think, in my experience at least, a lot of entrepreneurs end up, particularly if you've made it a certain point in your career and you've had some success in that, all the things that all the skill sets that you used and all the things you loved about the business when you started, you've either eclipsed your skill set or you've started to hate all the things that you used to love because there's just too much of it. So that's the place. It's a difficult place for a lot of entrepreneurs to get out of, which is why a lot of expire when they get there. I wanted to expire. I wanted to quit. I wanted to get small again. I wanted to go back, revert. And I also had this other thing where I was like, I wish somebody would just come along and, reach down into this valley and grab me and pick me up out of here, dust me off and show me, what I should do. Tell me what I should do and show me the way. And when it happened in near the end of 2003, and my partner Butch, who gave me the confidence, got me started, and who was just my rock, he passed away after he was burned terribly in a fire at one of our processing plants. And when I lost Butch, or when we lost Butch, it was just, I just couldn't believe it, Chad, because he was, when it happened to him, I knew it was not good. But it never dawned on me that he was like the strongest person I'd ever met, just strength and positivity, just had. And I thought, well, yeah, a normal person, yeah, but Butch will be fine. And then when I saw him the next day in the hospital, it was, you couldn't, I mean, it hurt. And then, he ended up not making it. And when that happened, that's what, that's what dropped me into the valley, and I think got me stuck there for a long time. And that came on a series of other things that had happened during the first 10-year period of the business, and a lot of things that, we had a lot of success, but, we had a lot of things that didn't go well. And some of them were tragic, like what happened to Butch. And it's just a lot to, I didn't have a mechanism for dealing with it. The mechanism I was using, Chad, was just, that's okay. I can get past this. I'll just work hard. I'll just do all the things that got me there in the first place. I just thought I would get out of there, and I just couldn't.
Sure. I would imagine. So tell me about ways that you thought that, like, you would have considered yourself to be stuck. Like, you thought about something you had to do that day, and it's like, I'm stuck here, or I'm stuck in this rut or whatever.
Yeah, I was kind of like a functioning stuck person, meaning it would be hard for you to tell if you were around me or outside of me that I was having the problems that I was having, because I was very private about those problems, and I was embarrassed by those problems. I did not want people to know that I didn't have my act together, that I didn't know exactly what I should be doing. But the reality was, we had started this business. We had this 10-year run. Now I lose my partner. Amongst other things that had happened, I was very, I had been treating the business like it was still a startup, like it was a little baby that needed my attention all the time. And that was actually, it was where it used to make me happy. Now it was making me resentful. And so what ended up dawning on me was that, okay, all of these things happened, can't change any of them. I have to look at it a little differently, like, not who's to blame for this, but what did I do? And then what I did, Chad, was I designed a system that was perfectly suited to put me exactly where I was. Like, this is where I should be, because this is what I designed. This is where I designed myself to end up. And I'm not saying I could have predicted all the things that happened, but I just set up something that was perfect for putting a person like me where I ended up. And then, yeah.
I would think that that's pretty common for entrepreneurs. I'm not an entrepreneur, but from what I can tell just by talking to them, you have a passion, you have an idea, and you work and work and work and work and work and do everything you can to make it good. And then once, maybe like you said, you're 11 years down the road and you just don't know any other way to go about it. Have you found that that's common for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, very common. What I've found is less common is that you're willing to admit that to yourself. Some other people have asked me, well, why do entrepreneurs have to break before they're willing to listen to, a message about a way to break through? And I said, well, I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there are some people who don't have to, but I think the majority of us always think that we can, work or figure or think our way out of something until we realize that we can't, and we're not really open to the message until, we're broke or we're in that valley. We're just not open to the message. And so I'm trying, to get people to think about being aware of these things sooner and acting on them sooner. Because if I had acted on these things sooner, I feel like I may not have broken the way I did. I feel like I may, and ultimately, if I was aware, I could react and change things, get help. Which is another thing entrepreneurs don't often like to do, is get help. And I really do feel, Chad, that had I done that, I'd be much, much further along in my own success, or the companies that I've owned success. And, everything would be bigger. My whole impact on everything would be bigger if I had learned earlier. But as I mentioned, a lot of us aren't open to the message until we're really in a tough spot. And that was certainly me. So I don't regret not having made changes quicker. That's just the way it is. But I am very, very happy that I was able to get see a path and get myself out of there and get into the breakthrough stage where every entrepreneur should be.
So you were in kind of this valley of uncertainty, and you're not necessarily somebody who, at the time at least, wants to seek help. How did you realize that there were things that you could do that could be changed and get you out of this valley?
Well, as I mentioned, when it became clear to me that I had designed this thing to put me where I am, it also became clear to me that I could design something to put me somewhere else. Now, I didn't know exactly how to do that, but accepting that sort of intellectually was a big boost for me. Also, I was complaining to another one of my partners about, all the unfairness of, what was happening and in the business, what happened to Butch, how I was feeling, all this. And he was like, it was on a Saturday. I remember it pretty clearly. We were on the phone. His office was in another state, and we were talking, and he's like, you just sound like you're just complaining. He's like, you're in charge of this thing. If you want something different, do something different. So he wasn't accepting what I was trying to sell that day. And that, and then a number of other things got me, I just opened me up to, okay. So I can design something that's different than what I have here. Great. Now he's telling me I have permission to do that, right? This is nobody's fault. There's nobody to complain to. There's nobody to blame. And then I started to get involved in some programs, like Strategic Coach, for example, helped me begin to see that there was a different way to be an entrepreneur, and got me on the path where I started designing this future that I could make my property, that I could own and I could create and share with everyone.
So as you were kind of transitioning toward that path, you still kind of had to figure out exactly what you were doing wrong. In your book, you discuss 4 fallacies in your thought process. As a leader or a founder, what kinds of things do you think that you were doing that may have contributed to landing in the valley of uncertainty?
Oh, well, so I thought I could do everything by myself, for example. I didn't need help. Getting help was a weakness. To me, getting help or needing help or asking for help was a weakness, and I didn't want that to be a part of me, for example. Another was that I was embarrassed about what I didn't know. Right? It sounds ridiculous, but I think it's common. I was embarrassed about what I didn't know, and so I didn't want to put myself in situations where I didn't have the answer. So those are a couple of things that were just belief systems that I had that were just wrong. They were just, keeping me stuck. They were part of the system that I designed, or the thinking behind the system I designed to get me into the valley in the first place. So I just had to, I had to change those things.
The title of your book talks about how you got selfish. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so thanks for asking. Selfish is it's got a horrible connotation to it. And like, nobody wants to be called selfish. Nobody wants that label assigned to them. But I think it's appropriate for me because I feel like during what I call the dream and the grind, and maybe even the broke stage of the 4 stages of the entrepreneurial journey, a lot of us, and this is definitely me, I was kind of the person who thought I was living the selfless leader life, meaning I was always available. I was always there to, fix a problem. I always wanted to be the person that helped other people before I helped myself or put everybody else first. And, I think that kind of fed my ego and maybe also made me feel like kind of the hero of the day. And maybe it made other people feel good too, Chad, but what it didn't do was allow me, I wasn't spending any time doing the job that I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be leading this organization. I'm supposed to be creating a vision for the future. I'm supposed to be marching us towards something bigger and better. And I was just putting everything else first. I was avoiding my job. And so when I use the term becoming selfish, I had to figure out, I mentioned this, creating a future that was my property. I had to figure out what I wanted that future to be, look like, how I was going to actually buy it, pay for it and own it. And once I was able to do that, I was then able, at least I think I was then able to become selfless again, because I had this, I took the time to be selfish to figure this stuff out, and also what I needed to do that was different than what I had been doing in order to get there. But then once I had that, I could communicate that to people. I could rally people around that. I could give them the autonomy to do things that needed to be done to get there. And I could change the role that I had. I didn't have to be the hero. The hero wasn't going to get this done. Me being the hero was not going to get this done. And it allowed me to be a selfless leader again, but in a different sort of way, where I wasn't solving everyone's problems. I was encouraging everybody. I was leading. I was leading instead of, I don't know, doing.
Sure. Did you, when you decided to make these changes, did you think about those things as selfish at the time? Like, okay, I need to get more selfish.
No, I didn't, but I wish I did, because I think I would have done a better job with it. So that revelation came later. Like when I looked back on it and I go, that's what happened. I got selfish about what I needed to be working on so that I could be more effective and then ultimately be selfless again, because I do want to be selfless, but I just don't think you can go through life putting everybody else first if your responsibility as an entrepreneur, for example, is to build, the biggest thing you can build. I just don't think you can do it.
What are some ways or some things that you did to get more selfish, and how did it help?
Well, for one of the, like from a tactical perspective, hiring an assistant was huge for me. Something I resisted for a long, long time, even though people had been telling me that it's a good idea to have an assistant. I thought, no, goes against all my belief systems. I don't need somebody to do work for me. I certainly don't want to be seen as a person who thinks they're important, or above everybody else. And I had all those kinds of thoughts going on in my head, Chad. And what I was missing was that if I had somebody to help me do all of the things that were getting in the way of me doing the things that I was supposed to be doing, that I would be so much more impactful and so much more, my mind would be free, my time would be free or more free. My ability to think would be more free, and I could really use what I have, what's unique to me that maybe we didn't have other people in the organization who had the skill sets that were unique to me to work on the things that are unique to me. And the irony is, once I decided that Robin was going to join my team, I was still very nervous, like, with all these things about what people would think. And the reality, maybe a little blow to my ego, Chad, was that once people discovered that she could get them what they needed, that's really all they wanted. They didn't want me. They only wanted me because I told them they had to come to me. And once she was able to convince them that, dealing with her would be probably a much better experience and faster, and get, what they wanted, that's really what they wanted. What's what they wanted. It was a little humbling, but it was also perfect.
When you decided to kind of change your behavior or your attitude toward doing everything, what was the initial reaction of maybe some of your employees or your colleagues?
Well, I think for some that had worked with me in the dream and the grind stage very closely, it was a little difficult. There was some difficulty there, but she was so good at helping them as an extension of me, like making them feel really great and getting them what they wanted, that it was I don't remember it as being a long-term issue. It was just a getting used to issue. So I didn't lose anybody over it. And as I said, it actually made it, so this is going to sound weird, but it actually made it, I think, for all of us, more consequential, our relationship together. So rather than we getting together all the time to talk about stuff that, we maybe wasn't moving the needle on the business. Now, when we got together, everybody knew it was like, okay, we're going to move the needle today, because that's the kind of issue we've got in front of us.
I was just going to ask. So once you got selfish, how did that kind of change the trajectory or the culture of the company?
Well, it changed the trajectory for sure. And every entrepreneur says, "Oh, I got a great culture," and I really hope that our culture improved quite a bit, and I think it did. And I think, and the reason I think it did is because we actually established a leadership team, and everything didn't roll up to me like it had for all of those years. But we also had, and the leadership team came up with, all of the majority of the tactics and that we were going to use to execute the strategy, and they were also responsible for making sure that the people on their team believed in our mission. So I think there was a lot more touching of people and a lot more value shared with everybody on the team than there was before, the way I was doing it. I mean, I feel like I valued everybody, but I certainly didn't. We had 150 or 170, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't touching everybody all the time. So I feel like having the leadership team in place, and then giving them the autonomy and the responsibility for maintaining and building the culture, I think was very helpful.
And then it changed the trajectory as well?
Yeah, I mean, it changed the trajectory amazingly for a number of reasons. One, strong teams always do better than weak teams. But two, like me, my sort of, what was unique about me, I was able to help us, find and source some really nice acquisitions that helped us expand our geographic footprint and other capabilities. And I wouldn't have, I probably wouldn't have done that or had the time to do that if I hadn't, made some of the changes. So those are some of the breakthroughs that came as a result of getting selfish.
Why do you feel like it's important to share that story about getting selfish and how that helped you as an entrepreneur?
Because I don't think it's something that gets shared enough. I think by using the word selfish, it gets people's attention, because I want to get their attention to what I actually want to see, or what actually worked as movement for me, and I think might work as movement for them. There's so much talk about servant leadership, and everybody wants to be a servant leader, and who wouldn't want to be, because it's it comes across as like the holy grail, but I really do feel like you can't be a servant leader until you're a selfish leader. And otherwise you just burn yourself out with selflessness. And so that's why I think selfish is an appropriate word to be using.
When you decided to become selfish, did you come up with kind of some daily selfish rituals that you found to be important and helped you?
I would say when I first did, so I've gotten better at this. I've gotten better to the point where that outpaces the book, but certainly working with Robin as my assistant was tremendous in giving me the opportunity to have habits, right? To have daily habits that promoted where I wanted to go instead of daily reactions to things that were happening all around me. Now I could never, I'm not going to suggest that I could, get rid of every reactionary thing that happens in a business, but you sure can minimize them. And I started when people weren't coming to me anymore, Chad. It was kind of a bummer at the beginning because I was kind of like, what, am I no longer important or anything? But so freeing ultimately because I got to work on the stuff that I wanted to work on with very much fewer interruptions or distractions or whatever. And I think that's the power. That's the power. I would never suggest that here's the secret, you get selfish and then you turn this on, you switch this switch and all. No, but if you're always thinking about that, what should I be doing in order to do the job I'm here to do? As an entrepreneur, at least, and you have the freedom and autonomy to make the changes you want, so you should do them.
So your waste treatment, recycling, and disposal companies generated a great deal of revenue while you were there, and then sold for fantastic amounts.
Yeah.
Beyond kind of that shift toward, thinking about what you want, do you have any other overarching pieces of advice for entrepreneurs?
Well, I say maintain a go big mentality all the time. So most entrepreneurs get into this because they have this idea that's a big idea. And that's the dream stage, right? And then you get into the grind stage and that idea, this big idea starts to get whittled down and become smaller because you become smaller. And I want to encourage all entrepreneurs to think big, and I want to help them with strategies and tactics and thinking that keeps them thinking big and creating a future that's as big as they can possibly create.
Tell me about the How Did That Happen podcast.
Yeah, so thanks for asking. The How Did It Happen podcast is one I started in 2018, and I just I got very curious about the podcast that I was listening to at the time. And they were like, so I feel like I've been designing since 2004 or so. I've been sort of designing a custom school for myself as I was trying to get out of the valley. I was like, okay, what do I need to know here? What do I need to know here? And I started to, get in front of people and information that really gave me the education that I needed. And so when I started listening to podcasts, I thought, oh, this is just an extension of my school. It's just a great extension of education that's available to me whenever I want it. And I can find whatever I'm looking for. And it just really interested me. And I thought to myself, well, this is something that I can do, and I can make it my mission to, really explore stories of success, people, with the goal of inspiring and activating more greatness in everyone that's listening. So I just, it's phenomenal. I have phenomenal people on the show, like I'm sure you do on your show, and we get really deep on, not just how it happened, but why it matters. And ultimately, what I love is that these stories about people who've had this great success, everybody looks at them in the present and thinks they've been on top of the mountain their whole lives. And it's just not true. They nobody starts on the top of the mountain, right? Or hardly anybody starts on the top of the mountain. And we talk about, how they actually did get started when they were just a normal person, just like me or you or anybody listening. And I want to, that's where I think the greatness becomes inspired. I can't inspire you if I feel like I'll never be you. That's not, to me, that's not inspiring. It's intimidating. And I want to get people back to where they were, like me, for example, or like any listener, and grab something there that says, yeah, you were just like me at one point, and look where you are, and I can be there too. And so you activate something in me, and I take an action that I wouldn't have otherwise taken.
Sure, that's great. How can people find out more information about your book, your podcast? Your book comes out at the end of November. Your book, your podcast, and anything else you have going on?
Yeah, the book comes out November 30th. It'll be available on Amazon or on my website or anywhere you buy books. On November 30th, you can get a free chapter of my book. Before that, by going to my website at Mike Malatesta, MALATESTA.com, and go into the book tab, and there's a free chapter, the forward, and a free chapter there. And then I'm active on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me there, Mike Malatesta is where you'll find me, and I do spend some time on LinkedIn, so happy to connect with anyone there.
Well, hey, it's been a great pleasure to speak with you today, Mike, and you've got some great stories. I'm sure the book will be quite interesting for everybody to check out, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Chad.
Thank you. So long, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Top Business Leaders Show, powered by Rise 25. Visit rise25.com to check out more episodes of the show and to learn more about how you can start your own podcast.